Tough night in the office. That is how I am defining this game for Detroit. Tough night in the office. This is just how some games go in the NFL. And for Lions fans, and for any NFL fan, we need to accept that these are the kind of things that happen every single year to every single team. Super Bowl winner, Super Bowl loser, playoff team, non-playoff team. Every single year, you play one of those games where nothing goes right for you, but everything goes right for the other team. You play this game back, and you could ask KC fans. I'm sure they'd be honest and say this is true. You play that game back one more time, it's probably not going to be a blow, or as bad as it looks, 30-17. At the very least, it's certainly a closer game, if not an outright change in result, because water has a way of finding its level. Now, let's get into a little bit of the details. Offense had a few crucial mistakes, and namely, those mistakes were on two particular drives. The first one is on a very suspicious penalty on a trick play that, got called back for illegal motion. And I don't have the exact quote here, but basically, the rule is if the quarterback does not get set at the position under center or in the shotgun, I guess, and then he goes in motion, he has to stop while in motion, and then you can snap and run the play. I don't remember what the play clock situation was. Maybe it was like 2 seconds, and then Goff was not perfectly set for the referee's standards. I don't know. When I was watching that play live, there wasn't it wasn't as though he's running and then they snap the ball to Montgomery. I simply put don't understand how these kind of things happen, and seemingly only happen to the Lions, where we'll run a trick play that's so well designed that it beats the defense. The defense had no way of stopping it. And frankly, the only way that play doesn't work out is if Goff dropped the ball, which he almost did, right? That's the only way this play doesn't work out. And the refs then talk about it and say, well, I don't know. We're hearing from New York that there's this rule that maybe he wasn't perfectly set to our standard. The kind of thing that just seems to only happen in one direction. I don't remember them doing that sort of thing during the Philly special in the Super Bowl. I just don't happen to remember that. Maybe they did. Maybe they were deliberating, and it turned out that Nick Foles actually did. I don't know. I'm not a rule expert. You're not a rule expert. It's just kind of funny that happens. Anyway, the other crucial mistake on the offense was the Amon-Ra drop on 4th down, and I said it at the time. I hate those drops. I hate them with a passion. If you don't get it on 4th down, I'm fine. I'm fine with it. I mean, I'm not happy, but I'm fine. If the defense makes a big play, whatever. I'm fine with it. If you execute your play correctly, if you find the open man, if you find the hole in the line, and you just trip or you drop the ball, that I'm less fine with, because everything was set up to where you just had to execute. And Amon-Ra uncharacteristically did not. And otherwise, he had a fine game, 9 catches for 45 yards. Not his best, but not a terrible game by any means. But that was pretty much it for the errors on the offense. I mean, you couldn't really get much of the run game going, unfortunately. Montgomery only got 4 carries, which I thought was a little uncharacteristic. They really were trying to get something going with Jahmyr Gibbs. And Montgomery was averaging 6 yards a carry, granted on 4 carries. But it was a little odd, admittedly, that he did not get a whole lot of handoffs going into that game. As far as the defense goes, they did not play well, completely. They just it was just bad all around. Bad tackling. Just I don't know exactly. I don't know what the numbers are, but bad tackling overall. You had Alex Anzalone was your lead tackler with 12 total tackles. He looked like he was about the only guy who wanted to tackle on that team. I mean, the amount of times where I saw either it was Branch or Kirby Joseph or whomever, that the guys would just bounce right off of them, or they arm tackle. It's that kind of stuff that really does grind my gears. And Mahomes really did have a lot of time I mean, just 3 total sacks for the team, which, is fine enough. But Mahomes had a lot of time. He was able to break free of sacks that he really shouldn't have. Couldn't get any takeaways despite the strip sack that Hutchinson had. That would have been a huge takeaway. It just didn't look good. It looked like the defense was not ready for this game. And you put that on Calvin Shepard, you put that on Dan Campbell. It is what it is. It was a bad day in the office, like I said at the top. And it gets all the more frustrating when, like I said in the offenses section, you get burned by penalties that are questionable at best. Like the pass interference call on what I believe would have been a 3rd down and 7, 3rd down and 10. I think it was a 3rd down and 10, and it would have been 4th down, and they would have either had to kick it or punt it away. I don't remember what the field position was. And I think it was Anzalone was in coverage, or whomever was in coverage. Travis Kelce was the receiver, and a little bit of tugging, a little bit of hand, but clearly playing the football. And after Kelce complains to the referee, "Oh, here you go, Travis. We know you got to put on a big show for your fiance up in the the suite there. So here you go, buddy. We'll give this to you." Like, okay, that's frustrating. That's hard to deal with. And again, it's compounded on the fact that, look, I've watched a lot of football games. All right, I've watched a number of games with big teams, with small teams, with bad teams, with good teams. I don't really remember the last time I saw a game where one team had all of the penalties and the other had 0. Now, granted, it was only 4 total penalties on Detroit. And granted, KC did have an offsides call that was declined. But I got to tell you, the penalties that did get called just so happened to swing the momentum in favor of KC at exactly the moments where they could have used a break. Lions have a touchdown taken away on their opening drive, right? They could have gone up 7-0. Instead, it's 3-0. And then they can take the lead on their opening drive. Lions come up with a big stop. Oops, pass interference. Now KC goes down the field and scores a touchdown. That's at least a 14-point swing. At least. And again, things happen. Like, you can't just say, well, if they didn't call the penalty, they wouldn't have scored. Not necessarily true. And the other way around. They don't call the penalty, the Lions do score. Maybe they do. I don't know. Like things just happen in real time in these games, and you can't just say, well, these are the specific things that change the game. Unless it's final play of the game. Unless we're talking Cowboys-Lions circa 2023 and Taylor Decker catches a game-winning 2-point conversion and it's actually taken away because the refs didn't want the Lions to win, and I will go to my grave believing that is the case. It is what it is. Like, the Chiefs, they only had the ball for a little over a minute compared to you, but they were able to take advantage, and they were able to march down the field. They had 26 first downs to your 18. They were 4 for 10 on 3rd down. Not amazing, but they were also 2 for 3 on 4th down. You were 0 for 2. That changes things, right? Things are just, it's just the way that it is. They had 6 trips to the red zone. You had 2. You're not going to win every game. And look, out of this game, there's a few things. And I want to go with the reasons to worry and the reasons to not worry. Reasons to worry: injuries, especially in the secondary. And now you have the suspension to Brian Branch for being an idiot and feeding into Juju Smith-Schuster's obvious trolling. Gets himself suspended for next week. You got a tough stretch of games, especially next week against Tampa Bay. The injuries, especially into the secondary, feel very 2023-ish. I don't want to have to speak Kindle Vildor again, so preferably don't do that to me, Detroit. The reasons not to worry, though: Lions haven't lost back-to-back games since 2022. And they play especially well in primetime games and especially on Monday night games. Go look at Jared Goff's stats on Monday Night Football. They showed it on the last Monday Night Football game they had a few weeks ago. It's really good. And Tampa Bay is going to be without a lot of their wide receivers. That bodes well for you because you're without many of your cornerbacks. But you got to think, okay, You're probably going to be getting Aleem McNeil back sooner rather than later. You could be getting Terrion Arnold back. DJ Reed will eventually come back. You still have a trade deadline where you could go out and get another corner, another depth piece. Amik Robertson, despite, obviously last week notwithstanding, he can put together a very good game for you. And Kelvin Shepard has shown, at least so far, that he's a pretty good defensive coordinator. He might not necessarily be an elite defensive coordinator. That is yet to be seen, but he's a pretty good defensive coordinator. I think that next week does feel like it could be a bounce back game for Detroit for all of those reasons. And that's pretty much the reason why I'm not in complete and utter panic worry mode. I'm not happy. And if they lose next week, I also will not be happy, but I won't be in full blown, let's just get out of here. Let's just like shut everything down, go ballistic, need to do something drastic. I'm not in that mode yet. This is going to be a tough stretch, no doubt about it. We knew it going into the season. But I think the Lions are built for it. They certainly have the talent level to do it. And once again, a few plays go your way last week, you win that game in Kansas City. And you're 5-1 instead of 4-2. Last year you lost just 2 games. I'm not saying that that's going to be what happens this year, but people got to get used to the fact that you're going to lose more than 2 games most seasons. Like, I think this team is certainly capable of going 12-5. That means they still got 3 losses on their schedule. I don't know where they're going to come from. They might not come in a comfortable spot. They might be the next 3 games you play. I don't know. But what I do know is that it was a little suspicious what those referees were doing. I'm just saying. It was a little, at least, come on, Kansas City fan, is at least a little suspicious, right? A little. Not like, shut down the league, it's totally fixed and rigged. Just like a little suspicious. A little vicious, a little, not superstitious, just a little stitious. Hey, YouTube, if you like clips like that, hit the like, hit the subscribe button. We've got live shows every Tuesday night. Hope to see you there.